meeting to order. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Senator Funky Frohmeyer. Senator Givens. Senator Maiden. Senator Mays Bledsoe. Senator Neal. Senator Nunn. Senator Rawlings. Senator Richardson. Senator Webb. Representative Banta.
Present.
Representative Bojanowski. Representative Bowling.
Here.
Representative Bray.
Present.
Representative Bridges. Representative Brown.
Here.
Representative Dietz. Representative Fleming.
Present.
Representative Freeland.
Present.
Representative Fugit.
Here.
Representative Gentry.
Here.
Representative Hart. Representative Lockett. Representative McPherson.
Here.
Representative Riley. Representative Stevenson. Representative Thomas.
Present.
Representative Truitt. Representative Upchurch.
Here.
Representative Williams.
Here.
Co-Chair Petrie. Chair McDaniel.
Here. Very well. We have a quorum duly constituted to conduct business. At this time, before we advance, Representative Thomas has an introduction he would like to make. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have Miss Amanda Davenport. She's all the way up from Caldwell County. She's up on economic development down in that area and working with Secretary Knoll, and hopefully good things will be coming to Western Kentucky. So thank you.
Very good. Welcome. Anybody else have an introduction they want to make today? Very well. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on the minutes from the September 17th meeting. By Senator Funky Frohmeyer, second by Senator Nunn. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, like sign. The ayes have it. Minutes are approved. Very well. Okay, at this time, we have representatives from Kentucky Department of Education to speak about SEEK and on behalf of payments. So if you guys could come forward, please. You are no stranger to the committee, but if everybody please identify themselves for the record.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Matt Ross. I'm the Associate Commissioner in the Office of Finance and Operations.
Good afternoon. My name is Karen Worth. I'm with the Division of Budgets and Financial Management.
Good afternoon. Che Ritter, Division of District Support with KDE.
Very well. Please proceed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our understanding is that our presentation today will be on SEEK and some of the recent changes to SEEK, as well as KDE's on-behalf payments, which KDE receives in the budget appropriation and makes on behalf of local school districts. So without much further ado, I'll let Che take over.
Good afternoon, everyone. Probably met with quite a few of you over the years to talk about SEEK in general. We're going to do something a little different today and talk about recent changes, keyword being recent. We didn't go all the way back in the history of SEEK. It's pretty lengthy, but there are some significant changes in the past couple of budgets and sessions that made a big difference in SEEK, and we'll jump through those. But as well, we wanted to talk a little bit about the funding program and why we're here talking about it today in 1990. Of course, you had a Supreme Court case, CARA was a result, and lawsuit, of course, and this funding formula sort of came out of that to help sort of equalize our state. As many of you are aware, we're like a lot of states where you have property wealth in one area and lack of property wealth in another. That's a really high-level explanation of that. And not that you're needing to sleep at night, but if you ever read the CARA decision, it's pretty lengthy, but there's a lot of really good information there about what those people were seeing at that time and why the decision was possibly made by the Supreme Court at the time. So guaranteed base, this is when you all work on the budget bill, one number that we pay very close attention to, and I'm sure your budget staff do as well, is this per pupil amount. And you will notice in recent history this has gone up. But what's behind these numbers in further history, it's consistently gone up over time. This is a function in the budget bill, and this number kind of ripples through the whole formula to impact the levels of funding for all types of students, free lunch, exceptional children, limited English students. So as this number goes up, there's factors that we multiply that by, and that increases typically the funding for those classifications. But you'll typically hear, because it's a small number, it's easy to grasp, you'll hear this one in the news probably more often than not. Currently, we're at 4,586. And I believe off the top of my head, I think we had one period where that number was kept the same. And that may have been during the recession in, I want to say, 08 through 10 maybe. But this has consistently grown over a lengthy period of time. So part of the data we use to calculate SEEK is based on attendance. These are kids obviously showing up in school. This is a big factor in school funding. Every single district goes through a process of recording, obviously, attendance, absences, and we do some calculations and some work on the data. And this is multiplied by that per pupil that was on the previous slide. Also in the fall, we're looking at prior year, end of year data for attendance. But in the fall, we're looking at current year to sort of help those districts. I think the theory was at the time, if you've grown in the current year, this will help pay for additional staff, resources, et cetera. And the example I can give you is you've added 250 students, in the current year, you're going to need some additional staff for those students, arguably. So that's what that funding's about. And that's also known as second month growth. Then later on, maybe I'm going to say it's been in the 2000s, but they added January growth, another round of current year growth. Did you grow again? Basically, is the question. And for that threshold, you have to be over 1%. So kindergarten is really one of the more significant recent changes. This was big, a big shift in the funding, a big shift in how we pay for kindergarten students. Historically, these students were funded at 50%. So if you go back to the per pupil amount, cut it in half, that's because that was the way it was built into the formula. And in 2022, House Bill 1, again, that changed. Now these students are, added just like any other student, and so the funding went up. By my math, using today's numbers, it's around $157 million in additional funds, in general funds, I should say, and then about $21 million or so in building funds. Now this applies to all districts. All districts have kindergarten students.
I'm going to stop you there for just a
Yes.
quick second. Representative Bojanowski had something. You want to wait? Okay, we'll wait till the end. All right, sorry.
Sure.
Just mention that some funding is in budget.
Oh, I'm sorry. We do want to mention, too, this is in the budget bill, the current budget bill. So it lapses every 2 years unless it's included in the following budget bill. I just want to point that out. But on a scale of all the changes we've had more recently, this is probably the big one. This is huge, frankly. Makes a big difference. Seek at risk, this is free lunch students. This has not changed recently. This has been, I think the last change, we went from a average daily attendance model formula to an average daily membership model. But it's only for free students. It's 15% of that per pupil base. And if you really dig into the math, if you had the same number, that 15%, as that per pupil amount increases, so does the funding for at-risk students. So it has increased over time, or the factor has, but no formula changes or anything like that. This works out to be about $687 per student or so. Exceptional child count, for those of you that have suffered through my many presentations here, I talk a lot about this number. It's a large population of our students. Of our overall SEEK budget, it's over $500 million. So it's a significant amount of money in that formula. So when we look at these students, it's a December 1 child count, and we take that. Usually that's completed in like the dead of winter. We'll take those numbers and put it into SEEK. That runs about almost 11,000 per severe student, about half that for moderate, and then an additional 1,100. Now that's on top of that base number that you saw. I didn't talk about local effort, but we'll get to that. But one thing about the categories of special ed are included here, because I wanted you to see in each of those categories. For example, low incidence would be the severe category, moderate would be that middle one, it's about 5,000 and change, and then high incidence would be your speech disorders. Limited English, this is a more recent add-on. I think, I'm going to say 2008 maybe. It's been a minute since I've looked at all the numbers or the history of this one, but it's stayed relatively the same. This population grows, not rapidly, but it's grown over time. It runs about $440 per student. Home hospital, not much has changed here. This is that base number minus $100. That $100 represents the capital outlay that districts get for facilities. So if you're home hospital, the idea is you're not in the facility, so that money is reduced from that amount. This number is typically for districts. These are kids that are ill. It's a pretty consistent number statewide. Transportation, this is a really gnarly formula. This is, I have nightmares. It's about this formula. And speaking in front of this committee, actually, but it's a joke. But this formula takes all of our transportation of students to and from school, and we work through a very lengthy process of looking at what we call T codes, how long they're on the bus, over a mile, less than a mile, twice a day. We're also looking at cost, and we come up with basically a calculated cost per pupil per day. We run it through some other formulas, and it comes up with an adjustment. And what's important here is one thing that I think should never get overlooked is for many years that this was well underfunded. We were in the 70% range, and the General Assembly bumped that funding up significantly. Again, talking about kindergarten being a big shift, this was as well. And on this next slide, we'll show you a little more of that. But right now, we're sitting at about 81% funded. So our cost of the program is about $487 million, and we're getting about basically $400 million, $398. But historically, we did want to point this out. Going back just a few years back, we were at the almost 55% range, 53, 68. There was a pause during COVID of data. So those numbers are, kind of hard. And you'll see that pop in the cost. We shot up, a little bit, like $90 million in cost. A lot of that's post-COVID expenses. You've got, buses are a lot more expensive than they were, labor cost and things like that. So we saw a dip, and then the General Assembly came in at $358 million in funding and then moved it up to $398 million. So now we're sitting about 81.7%. And it's been, I think, since 2008. Prior to that, it was funded in the 90% range. That's how long ago it's been. So kudos to you all. This is a really has a big impact on districts because it allows them to spend other money on other things in their district. Tier 1 funding, this is another change that happened in, I believe, the 2024 session. This just simply changed a number in our factor from 15% to 17.5%. That's a small change, but a big impact of about $44 million for most districts. This is kind of a scale based on property wealth. So some districts, I think there's about 6 that don't receive Tier 1 funding, but the majority do, and this would have increased their funding. Instead of 15%, it moved it up to 17.5%. One other item they were asked to speak on was Senate Bill 6, the 2025 regular session. This was a bill to include fringe benefit cost, or as we refer to them, on behalf cost. These are costs borne by the state on behalf of districts. This would have, at least in my interpretation of the bill, take the statutory contribution for retirement, health insurance, et cetera, and any additional funds the General Assembly puts towards that liability and insurance payments as well. And all our reports would reflect this amount as part of the, I think, total being spent towards K through 12 education. And finally, we're back to this, the last slide there. Go ahead.
Thank you. So we were also asked to talk about the on behalf payments. So let me tell you what this slide is. These are on behalf payments that KDE receives in our budget appropriation and make on behalf of school districts. This does not include payments from other appropriations to other entities, other state agencies. So in for 2025, KDE received roughly $458 million to make on behalf payments for districts to TRS, the Teachers Retirement System. And we received $942 million for health insurance and health, life, and dental and vision insurance for districts. And then the department also pays certain technology costs on behalf of districts. So Munis, internet firewall, all those kind of things, we make a payment of about $12 million. Now the SFCC, that's the School Facilities Construction Commission, that is not within our budget or our appropriation, but this is debt service that SFCC makes on behalf of districts for construction projects. So there you see the total is about $1.5 billion. I will say that in the sort of asterisk below, we were asked to include numbers for TRS payments, on behalf payments, and for Insurance, so those are reflected in the asterisks for 2015 and 2016. You can see that in 2015 and 16, the amount of payment on behalf payments for both retirement and for insurance were considerably less. $372 million in 15, $380 in 16 for TRS contributions, and then $672 million and $686 million respectively for insurance payments during 15 and 16. So we've said a lot. We are very happy to take questions. We understand that it's confusing, and so let us have it.
Absolutely. Well, now we'll start with Representative Bojanowski.
Okay, thank you. So my question is what a potential impact is if we had another Senate Bill 6. So SEEK money, as I understand it, there's a set SEEK, and depending on the wealth of your district, you either get less money or more money, correct? If we lump all of the on behalfs into SEEK, does that mean that districts that have wealthier districts are going to be responsible for more of the on behalf? Would it be divided up just like how SEEK, if SEEK is a bigger number, would we only get a portion of it? But would that adversely impact districts in that they would not get the same on behalf payments that they do now?
I think I can perhaps answer some of that. And I think my understanding is that KTRS would determine the liability per district, which is on a report called Schedule A, which is on our website that you've probably seen. And we struggled I struggled rather to figure out a way to put the on behalf payments, sort of merge it into SEEK as far as part of the formula. Now, that's probably partially on me for trying to figure out how to do it on a per pupil basis like I run SEEK, but at the same time, we believe that we'd found a way to report it on the same report that we send to districts or we have available publicly that would show on behalf, total SEEK dollars, everything in the kitchen sink. Alternatively, I believe that same information is available already online through a spreadsheet we've had, a very lengthy spreadsheet called Revenues and Expenditures. It goes back many, many years, and it would include on behalf payments that state makes. It includes SEEK, includes local funds, federal, basically everything. And that was the purpose of that report. So I'm not sure if I really answered your question or not. We may have to come back to you on that one.
I think I would add, too, that the SEEK funding formula is a distribution method for us to make payments to school districts. So on behalf payments are payments that are reflected on a district's books, but are not payments that KDE makes to the school district. Those payments are made on behalf of the districts to TRS from KDE. So rather than 171 districts cutting checks or making payments to TRS, we do that on behalf of them. Right, so...
All right, if I may briefly.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so then effectively, we'd still have the same SEEK for the function of what SEEK is now, and only for reporting or announcing what our SEEK is would that number change.
Right, I think you could have your SEEK per pupil, but you would also have like a total per pupil, right, that would reflect everything that we wanted to report. And I think that's done in certain places.
Right, correct.
It'd be done more publicly, right? It's public, but it's in spreadsheets, right? So we're happy to display everything however you all would like us to display that. That's not a problem. It just becomes a little more trying to make our SEEK system work when we're having liabilities and distribution of funds, sort of.
Thank you.
Well, I think Senator Givens can shed some more light on that as well.
Certainly can. First of all, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation because Senate Bill 6 was something that there was some confusion about. And Representative Bojanowski, your question is the perfect point for me to clarify again that Senate Bill 6, as we drafted it and it passed the Senate, would have no impact on local contribution. So as I think one of our presenters, Mr. Ross, was indicating, it would simply be a reporting mechanism because the majority of other states look at the totality of what they invest in education and report that number as their investment in education. We don't. We're one of the few states that don't report it that way. And so this would simply be a reporting mechanism, not impacting the local contribution. Thank you.
Very good. Senator Mays Bledsoe.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your presentation. I just have a quick question. In several of my conversations with school counselors and truancy conversations about the mental health of some of our kids, we've talked about the home and hospital accommodation. It seems that has been growing rather exponentially in the last few years, at least from those conversations. Can you speak to any data that shows that that's actually happening?
No. Now we're looking at an aggregate, the state number. If you're speaking of specific districts, we can go back and look at going back quite a ways to see what the trend is in those communities. But statewide, our number is pretty consistent. It's grown some, but not significantly from my recollection. But we'll be glad if you want to catch up after.
I would be glad to do that.
We can report back to the committee.
Because it definitely seems like that maybe you're saying the state number is saying the same. Maybe certain communities are maybe growing that they haven't before, and that would be great.
Absolutely, sure.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Very well. Chad, take us back to the Tier 1 funding slide real quick. I'd like you to kind of start at the beginning of maybe what districts are and aren't eligible to utilize Tier 1 funding, and then walk us through an example of even a hypothetical district so that we can understand how this actually works.
So when we talk about Tier 1 funding, most of the formula is really driven on a per-pupil basis. I'm a student. I'm free lunch. I'm exceptional. I'm a limited English student, and that generates funding for the district. This funding is a little different in that districts that have levied, the local boards have levied taxes that equal 15% of a SEEK base number. So they're basically saying, are you levying enough taxes to qualify for this? If you think of it, it's a carrot that the state uses to keep tax rates sort of at least a minimum up. And over time, districts, and when I say over time, I mean since 1990, local boards have levied taxes and generated enough local revenue to qualify for this. And the caveat is if a district's property wealth exceeds another calculation, which we determine every 2 years, there's a kind of a line, and once they cross into that, and I'll give you a list of them off the top of my head, Anchorage, Campbell County, Jefferson, Fayette, Nelson County just now, probably in the last year or two, kind of crossed into that. Property wealth has risen there, of course, so now they don't qualify for Tier 1 funding. And you can get into a lot of hypotheticals about the why the formula does that or what was the purpose of that. But it seems to be that districts with a lower property wealth would generate a little more on the Tier 1 end because they're having to, that's the formula just basically says you're generating enough to qualify, you're going to get your proportionate share of Tier 1. On a budgeted amount, when you look through House Bill 6, for example, it's, I think, $200 and something million per year. So it's quite a bit of money overall across the state, but there are a handful of districts that don't qualify. Does that help answer your question, Senator?
It does. And then, so the factor being 15%, that is 15% of the amount that's generated from their overall tax base, correct? Correct.
So when that was moved up to 17.5, it sort of bumped that formula up, increased the funding that's appropriated. And, for example, when that idea was being floated around, it's a simple question: what would happen, or what would we need to fund this at 17.5% rather than 15? So it increased it, and we sent the numbers over here, and it's approximately now in today's dollars about $44 million a year. So if it was to fall off, for example, that would reduce SEEK by roughly 44 to 50 million probably.
So just to follow up to make sure, very, very simple. If your district, let's say you had a total property assessment of $1 billion with a 1% rate, so you're generating $10 million under Tier 1, you would receive $1.5 million of Tier 1 funding. That now went up to 1.75.
There's a long formula.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
Much longer than that. That's super simplified.
Yeah. So I think super simplified is that are you generating enough locally as a local board to qualify? Check is yes. And then when you do, there is a limit on how much Tier 1 you're going to get because of the formula. So ballpark, yes. I think you're kind of down that rabbit hole of this is the funding you're going to generate locally. So that's in your left pocket, and then the state's going to put some in your right pocket, which is this Tier 1 funding for that local effort, if you will.
But Tier 1 is in addition to the SEEK per pupil.
Absolutely is, yes.
Very good. Thank you. Senator Givens.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And to stay on this theme of keeping it simple, Go to that last slide again that you had
Oh, sorry.
about the
My fault.
on behalf payments. So $1.527 billion of state taxpayer funds are flowing to schools in addition to the SEEK base and the add-ons. If we take that number of $1.527 billion and divide it by the population of students, 630,000 ballpark, is that about right?
Somewhere in there.
Somewhere in that range. That gets us about $2,400 by my math. So that 2424 added to the 4586 puts us at the number that Senate Bill 6 was hoping to have us talk about, which was the reported number of approximately $7,000 per pupil, if my math is correct.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
Okay.
Of course, that doesn't include any other payments to TRS,
Right.
or anything, but just straight on those numbers, that would be correct. Yes.
So that would be the state contribution of state taxpayer funds on a per pupil basis is approximately $7,000 per student, which again, for reporting purposes compared to other states, puts us in a totally different range than $4,586. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. And I think the other important thing to note in that is this is one of two places where SEEK comes in, and the preponderance of the SEEK funding actually comes in elsewhere in the KTRS section of the budget.
Mm-hmm.
So this is only a probably less than half of what we're actually putting into SEEK on an annualized basis. Yeah. Okay. Everybody else has SEEK down pat. No questions at all. We're completely understanding.
Very proud of all of you all.
Yeah. Jay, but you better watch it. There's some applications come flying in there.
I hope so.
Co-Chair Petrie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We'll not dive into SEEK, but I want to dive on the data itself just for a moment. And look, this is not a criticism, but it is a question. We've got SEEK data that we've had issues with, which is basically a projection issue. We had that come up in the 24 session. We had a quote-unquote shortfall or shortfalls, depending on how many subcategories you look at. On the on-behalf payments, as I understand, there were issues raised by Office of Education Accountability, OEA, in 7, 8, 11, and said that the collection of information of on behalf of payments were inaccurate, and that 2 prior reports of the inaccuracy as of 2011 had not been corrected. The methods by which those payments are being calculated. I know that's from 2011 to current, but I've really heard nothing on that issue as far as, are we sure? Do we have a high degree of certainty, confidence in our calculation of the on-behalfs? And then back up to SEEK, what has been done, what is being done to make sure that our projections and our numbers, our data for calculation of SEEK are at the utmost best that they can be.
If you can, let me answer that in reverse. So
Yes.
I've tried to be very brief with the process. We at KDE have met with the State Budget Director's Office for a consensus forecasting group, if you will, for SEEK. We look at property assessments, all this demographic data about students. We had very long and good conversations with them, especially regarding exceptional child count. What I call our soft spots, if you will, and what I believe are soft spots in the model. They were very agreeable to changing these to reflect more what we believe will be more accurate forecast. Now, it is a gamble every time we do this. We're placing, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,000 bets in a biennium, and we want to be very right as much as we can. But we also don't want to be over-right and blow up the budget on your end so you don't have money for other items. We try to be respectful of the totality of the budget rather than just my small world there, which is $3 billion. It's a lot. But we also want to make sure that we're doing it in a way that's fair and considerate to all the other budget appropriations you all have to work with. We understand our role. That being said, we worked very hard in the last couple of months. Submitted our budget a month ago or so to the governor's budget office. They can speak a lot more to the models than I can, but I remember they use 9 different models on the exceptional child number, and they try to find the ones that make the most sense. So it's not thrown at a dartboard. There is some method to the madness, thankfully. I'm not an economist, but we deal with districts every day, and we try to listen, particularly to the larger districts, which can kind of move to the left or to the right on numbers pretty quickly. We, are worried about population shifts, economic development, anything that could impact where students go, or if they leave the state, come into the state, birth rates, all that kind of stuff. So very important. I hope that answers your question, Representative Petrie.
It does, and to hit on that point on SEEK, so I'm going to boil that down to there have been conversations with OSBD
Yes.
about how to hone and make more accurate the projections and the models that were being used even in preparation for 2024 session.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We don't know if the models have changed, but we think that they have been modified.
Correct. Right.
Anything else done to make sure that we've got the utmost degree of confidence in the data, especially on the SEEK side?
No. I mean,
Okay.
we stuck with the same, process as far as meeting multiple times, making sure they understood what we knew and that we understood what they knew.
Okay.
We obviously our ears are on the ground with districts a little bit more. For example, if there's a issue in Jefferson County about their home hospital population, or Fayette County, generally we're going to know more than the Office of the State Budget Director would, so we'd share that information with them.
Very good. Anything on the OEA reports?
No, I'll go back and look at that and see what we can find.
Look at the
on that,
report in
reporting.
2011. It mentions 2 prior years and 2 raising of the issues, and they had not 11.
Cut out.
So they may have been addressed since 2011. I just want to make sure they have, and if they have, how? If they have not, why not? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir.
So I will add that, of course, if you're over or under a percent or a fraction of a percent, it could be millions of dollars, right? So in the years we've had overages, we overestimated, or the state budget director overestimated, and last time we missed it by just a small percentage, and it still is very impactful though.
You've jogged one cobweb loose for Co-Chair Petrie.
Yeah, thank you. And understood, But 2024 was an especially difficult session based on inaccurate data given to us so that we could budget. I do not want that to happen again, hence my questions. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Seeing none. Guys, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. Next up, we've got a discussion on the collection of university debt. In your packets, you do have a letter that was sent, I believe, to each of the universities related to the enterprise collections from the Department of Revenue. Gentlemen, if you could come up, please identify yourselves for the record and proceed. Let's have DOR first, and then we'll go with NKU next.
Very informative. Thank you. Appreciate it. I said that was very informative. A lot of information there. I'm going to try to make it clearly simple. I'm Tom Miller. I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Revenue. Going to give you a little background on the collection of student debt from.
Mr. Miller, would you care to pull that microphone just a little closer and make sure the green button's lit? I think we're struggling.
Is that better?
Yes,
Is that better?
sir. Thank
I'm
you
sorry.
very much.
I'm going to try to make this simple. I'm going to give you a little background on the collection of university student debt. In 2008, the Revenue Department began collecting debts on the behalf of universities across the state. In 2014, most of the universities began referring debts for collection. In 2020, post-pandemic, we were significant changes in hiring and retaining revenue employees overall. Very difficult, still is. Collecting student debt is discretionary. Collecting taxes is mandatory and is the core mission of the Department of Revenue for the Commonwealth of Kentucky. In 2025, we made a decision to collect the maximum taxes we could for the Commonwealth of Kentucky, which I believe is a very good business decision, and it was done for the Commonwealth in its entirety. And I hope that these slides that we have and are going to show the reason that decision was made. Thank you. I'm going to let Aaron.
Aaron Schaffner. I'm with the. Can everybody hear me? Good afternoon. I'm Aaron Schaffner with the Office of Enforcement, and we've got a few slides to go over here. Legal authority. Revenue has the legal authority to collect student debts for the universities, and also has the authority determine if it's feasible to collect the debts. Staffing challenges. As the commissioner mentioned, post-pandemic, there were significant challenges to hiring and retaining employees for the department, specifically for the department in collections. Collections positions are high-stress positions, with most calls starting with a taxpayer that is already unhappy. University debts, such as tuition, parking tickets, textbook fees, is a unique challenge. These debtors have limited income to garnish and frequently change jobs and frequently move. Collections comparison. As you can see, it's the best interest in the Commonwealth to collect taxes versus student debts. The Commonwealth kind of generates 39 times more revenue by collecting tax debts instead of university debts. And that's all we've got. If anybody have any questions?
Sure, I'll kick us off. You talk about the staffing challenges related to this. Could you speak to the numbers of debt collectors? And forgive me if there's a more technical term for it, but that you have seen a particular decline. How many did you have a year ago, 2 years ago versus now, et cetera?
Yes. In 23, we had 13 collectors. In 24, we were down to 11 collectors, and in 25, we are down to 7 collectors collecting student debts.
And are we actively recruiting for those positions?
Yes, we are still actively trying to fill positions.
And I think, we'll hear from one of the CFOs here in just a quick second, but I think part of the issue that we have, gentlemen, and related to this, is an issue of timing. You guys inform, so the universities, obviously, for some of them, this is not all of their budget, but it's also not an insignificant portion of what it is that they expect. I believe that you guys keep a portion of what you collect in this. Is that correct?
That is correct. We get 25% of the liability.
And so obviously, what do you get when you collect tax revenues otherwise?
What do we get? That number right down there, every month.
Correct.
Per individual.
Correct.
That is the ability. And Aaron, I'll let you.
I think the question is, when you collect on behalf of the universities, is that money that is directly replenished into DOR, or does that return to the Commonwealth's general fund?
That is returned to the general funds.
It does come to the general fund. Okay, so it's not a restricted fund used for your agency there. Okay, good, very good. So, back to the original question there, the issue of timing, right? The universities have to submit their budget before the end of 2024 to the governor's office, and your letter to them came out almost at the very end of the budgeting cycle, which then leaves a lot of them with a hole, because you guys, the nature of yours is you can place tax liens, I believe. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Which I think is a unique mechanism that the universities cannot do on their own. Is that correct? And so consequently, you're more effective Right, because of that particular mechanism.
Senator, my name is Steve Crawford. I'm the Assistant General Counsel at Revenue. Yes, you're quite right. We can place a lien on student debt. We can also conduct levies on student debt on behalf of the university, of course.
Can the university levy, though?
Directly without a judgment?
Not without a judgment. So you can levy without a judgment.
That
They
is
have to
correct.
obtain a judgment. Gotcha.
Of course, the universities still have to meet minimum standards of due process.
Sure.
You know, the Fifth Amendment tells us we cannot have a taking without due process. So they meet those minimum standards, then they submit the debt. Just as we do taxes, we don't have a judgment when we levy for taxes, but we still have to meet minimum due process standards. You know, for example, one gets a tax bill, you don't agree with it. You can protest that tax bill. That tax bill goes into what we call protest resolution, where we try to resolve the issue. If the issue is not resolved, it goes to the Kentucky Board of Claims, and on up the ladder, theoretically, to the United States Supreme Court.
Gotcha. Very good. Co-Chair Petrie.
Thank you. When you say you have collectors, and I think you're down to 7, it was the lowest number I heard. A collector is a DOR employee that is or is not an attorney?
Correct.
Correct.
Is or is not?
Could be an attorney, but they aren't.
So can
just
be
so you
either-
know that
so
that
can be either one. Can be an attorney.
It
doesn't
could
have
be
to
either one. Representative Petrie, of course, you know, you're not going to get a licensed attorney to work for the same salary. We're going to get somebody right out of college. But your question is, can it be either one? Yes, it could be, theoretically.
Okay. In fact, the 7 that you have, are they attorneys, non-attorneys, or a mixture?
No, not attorneys.
Okay, thank you.
And those 7, just so I'm clear, are collectors of university debt. They don't collect for the Commonwealth.
Yes.
Okay, just
Yes.
want to make that clear.
So the next question is this: I'm just asking, has anyone looked and examined whether it would be more sensible to have attorneys on contract or collection firms on contract, whether in-state restricted or out-of-state? I know there's a checkered history of this in various pieces of state government. I'm not saying that's a cure-all. I'm just asking if it's been looked into.
I believe, and in the current state of the statutes, that's precluded by statute.
So it's not been looked into because it's precluded by statute.
That is correct.
Has anybody looked into it to see if there should be a statutory change to allow it?
No, to my knowledge.
All right. Any intention or any possibility that you might look into that?
Wouldn't think so.
Okay, that's exactly what I needed to hear. Thank you very much.
Very good. Senator Gibbons.
Chairman McDaniel, your questions were along the line of mine, and so I don't know that I've got a lot to ask, other than I think I want to reiterate what I've heard and help me to understand if I'm missing something in this equation. So there's a 25% collection fee that you after expenses are taken out, return to the general fund, or you return directly to the general fund, and then we need to allocate back to you. Help me to understand that. If you've got expenses associated with collection.
I don't have that answer.
Okay. If you could possibly get that answer to me, and I say all this with the utmost respect, so don't take anything I say as being other than respectful. But we've got a copy of the letter that went to one of the universities. Dear Enterprise Collection Partners, you're familiar with the letter and the details that are laid out in it.
Yeah.
So from what you've shared with me, if I'm doing my math right, even on the worst year that you have on the slide, $5 million that was collected on behalf of universities. If you keep or get to give back to the general fund, either way, 25% of that is $1.25 million. If you've got 7 employees working in the space, that's about $175,000 per employee. I don't see why you're not still doing that. I say it respectfully. I don't see why you don't reverse the letter and say, we've changed our thought, rather than the legislature, because respectfully, again, you're getting ready to have something run over you in the next session in the form of statute telling you to do this. That's what this panel is here to do. You understand what I'm saying. It'd be a lot easier for you just to say, we've rethought this. we've decided to do it again. Respond.
You want to do it? You want me to?
You can.
Well, my response to that would be, again, we have a very difficult time attracting and retaining those type of collectors. So, next month, since COVID, we have had just a difficult time getting people. And when we do get them, we'll train them for a year, and then they will go on to the LRC, or they will go on to somewhere else in state government because they're getting paid more. It's not a very lucrative job. It's very stressful. And when we look at it, and we look at those 7 people that are working, and then we pull some of our other collectors out to try to help them get those jobs done in a timely manner, we're taking people away from collecting the tax dollars for the Commonwealth. So that's as clear of an answer as I can give you why it's just not good business for us to continue doing that.
Is there any prohibition in statute of you using a third-party collection entity, a private entity, to assist in the collection process?
In our statutes, yes. I mean, could the university hire a private collection agency to do their collection? Of course, they could. The problem they're going to run into, Representative, is KRS 130, 131, which allows us to collect debt without a judgment.
Right. They don't have the mechanisms
That is
available
correct.
that you have.
That is correct.
So would you be opposed to a statutory opportunity to work with a third party on behalf of the universities and utilize the tools you have to do the work of the Commonwealth?
I would like to see that in complete form. In theory, could a third party do what we do? I don't think they could do it as effectively. I'm also somewhat concerned about the legality of it.
Mm-hmm. Put your thinking cap on between now and the start of session and decide if you'd rather have us tell you to do it via statutory directive, or whether you'd like to have the latitude of a third party assisting you in doing it, and just come back to us with a recommendation.
Commissioner Miller, I have a question here. You said that this 13 to 11 to 7 was people who specifically collect on behalf of the universities. If you still have 7 employees who are there to collect on behalf of the universities, why are you not collecting on behalf of the universities? What's going on with those 7 folks?
We have other people in the enterprise. We also collect for executive agencies in state government, like the Labor Cabinet, like who else?
Any executive state agency can refer debt to us, and I think that's what the 7 are currently serving.
So they aren't just university
That
debt
is
collectors,
correct.
which is what you had said there. So, okay, I just wanted to be clear about that. So
I'm
they
sorry.
collect for any executive branch agency as well.
They was all in the same bucket. I misrepresented. I'm sorry.
Gotcha. No problem. All right. Senator Funky Fromeyer.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate, in fact, Senator Gibbons kind of touched on the direction I was going with my questions. But if there are 7 collectors, but we came from 13, again, are we going in the direction of not the incentive around that particular person that's in the stressful situation? There's no incentive to persist in this role, so therefore they're not paid well, and as you said, they're moving on to something else that's maybe less lucrative. Is there some incentive for the employee to do a great job with collections?
Oh, there's always incentive to move up or to move to another part of the
So a base
Department
pay
of
increase, but
Revenue.
not an incentive towards any portion of what they've achieved in collections.
Senator, that's precluded by law as well. We cannot reward a collector for, quote unquote, doing a good job with a percentage of what they collect, which is what happens in the real world, but we cannot do that by statute.
Okay, so then that's helpful to understand, but taking from perhaps the letter that we received from, has your office made any coordinated effort with the universities to establish perhaps a university assisting in this process and still being able to use your collection mechanisms, that you've got some sort of collaborative approach?
we've had communications with them, but we haven't moved forward with any of them.
And can you give us some idea about what that communications maybe looks like? And again, tying back to what Senator Givens identified as the direction that we may be required to take as a legislature, but what direction are you preparing to take?
I'm not real sure how to answer that, other than the fact that we've communicated with a number of universities, Northern Kentucky, Eastern Kentucky, I believe. We were on a Teams meeting with them, had some good dialogue, and they threw some suggestions out, and to me, it didn't make sense to move forward in the way we were going, even if they increase the percentages that we would keep, or if they funded something else, because it just wasn't, in my decision or my reasoning, a good business decision when those same employees or the other employees can be collecting Commonwealth debt, tax debt. And they do a significantly good job. So I'm not real sure how to answer that. We aren't moving forward with anything right now.
Okay. Senator Funky Fromeyer, did you have a follow-up to that?
I'm puzzling to the government efficiency. And I'm puzzling around the answer to the question that you perhaps wouldn't pay a person more or less based on what they collect, but we're collecting for other entities. It's as if we're signaling out to the nation, go ahead and enroll in our schools. We're not going to bother collecting. I mean, we're missing a degree of accountability, a significant degree of accountability here. But if these members of your team get paid the same, whether they're collecting university debt or executive branch debt, where's our trouble in hiring? Where's our trouble? I'm puzzled to this issue.
I wish I knew that answer, because we've been trying for years.
But when asked the question about hiring, I'm not even hearing a real clarity on your approach to hiring. And we, as private employers, many of us here have a second job in addition to our legislative role. There's a real difference in hiring in 23, 24, and 25 than in 2020. Mm-hmm. So I'm a little troubled as to perhaps even our hiring techniques and such. Again, going back to some efficiency here, I'm wondering what we're missing. And have we handcuffed your abilities or your processes? Help us understand how we can help.
I don't think you've handcuffed anything. The finance cabinet is very helpful in trying to get these positions out there and available for people to apply for. I wish I had brought my personnel person to be able to answer that question. I stay out of personnel as much as I can. But they do a fantastic job of trying to recruit. We have people on board that go to all the universities and try to recruit, tell them how good state government is, what is available. And we've got numerous applications. Some of them are good, some of them, just don't meet the criteria. So, but we've, over the last, especially since the pandemic, have worked extremely hard with our individual that goes out to K-State, University of Kentucky, all the meetings that I'm sure you're well aware of when those students come in and they hear about everything. He does an outstanding job, and he's helping other cabinets because he's done such a good job. When our employment at the department is at a max, then we can't hire anymore, even though we're trying to. We don't have the budget to hire more people at that point in time. He gives these names to other people in state government and different cabinets, and it's been very beneficial. So
I guess the point made that if it's $175,000 approximately per collector, why are we hiring an entry-level person to do this important job?
Got any answers? No. Because from what I can tell is each category, if it's a collector 1, a collector 2, a collector 3, there are ranges that you can afford and pay them. That's in the budget. We can't just bring somebody in and pay them X amount of dollars to do that. They have to meet the certain criteria and the certain level that the budget and personnel allows.
Very well. Senator Funky Fromeyer, I'm going to have to shift to Senator Nunn here real quick.
I'm sorry. She asked my line of questions. A few more, but I'll cede that.
And I'm not a personnel person, so I can't really answer that, and I apologize for being so vague.
And Commissioner, and I can appreciate that, but I would say at this point, this committee and the Commonwealth really needs two things. First of all is, we put not an insignificant amount of money into doing a personnel study for all of state government to try to get our people where they needed to be competitive. And if you're seeing something that is making them not competitive, we need that to be identified. I know that this administration puts up a number of roadblocks to you guys coming to us directly, but we need that kind of feedback because this is important to the universities, because the money that they're now not taking in falls to all the other families in that university. And I see your numbers up there, and I have no doubt that they're accurate, but I mean, you also have to think probably your average debtor who owes a university an amount of debt is far lower than your average taxpayer. So the number of debtors being collected from could be much smaller, but because you have a larger amount per debtor, that could be generating these numbers. But I mean, this is important to the universities, hence the reason, the interest that you see from everybody up here today. And with that, I think I'm going to stop droning on. I know I belabored this, and NKU has somebody to come up and talk from their perspective. So
right.
thank you, gentlemen, for the time.
Thank you all very
Appreciate
much.
it.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, at this time, we've got Mr. Chris Calvert from Northern Kentucky University come up, talk kind of from the university perspective on this issue. Guys, if you could, please identify yourselves for the record and proceed.
Christopher Calvert. I'm the Vice President of Finance and Administration and the Chief Financial Officer for Northern Kentucky University.
And Jenny Sand, Executive Director of Government and Community Relations for Northern Kentucky University.
So I apologize. We were requested to come late, so we didn't prepare a presentation. Happy to answer any questions, and appreciate the attention that this committee is giving to this issue. It is one that's very important to Northern Kentucky University, and it's also very important to the other universities in the Commonwealth.
So, guys, I will say that in some information that I was provided supplementary to this that did not make the packets, I show that over the past 5 years, the amount collected on your behalf from the Department of Revenue prior to the cessation of collections was about $4.1 million. For those 5 years, for WKU was about $5 million, and for EKU was about $5.7 million. You round out the last 4 years at roughly about $1 million annually. What does $1 million mean to NKU's budget?
$1 million is significant to our budget. In terms of one of the biggest challenges that we have as a university, and I think I don't want to speak for the other universities, but I think they face a lot of the same pressures, is really maintaining competitive wages. And those competitive wages enable us to maintain very competitive academic programs and the support needed for those academic programs. And so $1 million is very significant to our budget. Northern Kentucky University, those of you, especially from our region, know that we had some very significant budgetary challenges over the last 5 years. Since our new president took over, we have made tremendous progress to overcome those challenges, but we still have a long way to go. We're trying to replenish our cash reserves that had been significantly reduced over that period of time, and at the same time, be able to pay our employees, maintain our programs. It's a very difficult and competitive environment for all universities, not just public universities, not just comprehensives and research universities. So in order for us to be able to maintain our position and provide the quality of education and provide the people that can provide that quality of education, $1 million goes a very long way for a university. We had our very first budget surplus since in 7 years just this year.
Last week, you announced some restructuring that involved some unfilled positions that were cut, but also you laid some employees off. How many employees did you lay off last week?
We laid off 18 employees, and we eliminated another 32 positions.
Okay. Of the 18 employees that you laid off, roughly what was the salary amount?
Yeah, it was in total it was about $1.5 million of annual salary savings from those 18 employees.
So
that would include compensation, salary and wages, plus benefits.
So of the 18 employees, there is the potential that 12 of them wouldn't have lost their jobs if you'd had another $1 million.
There's a potential there. Yes, I mean it was a difficult decision. Part of those reductions also had to do with some enrollment that didn't quite meet projections. So I wouldn't exactly say that it was one-to-one. I would say that in terms of when you look at overall between the employees who were laid off and the positions that we were eliminated, certainly this had a factor in that overall situation.
Senator Webb, did you have something?
Go Norris, but I want to get back on the benefit of the state collection. I remember having the conversation in 2008 when we allowed it. And my fear was always that we would not give the agency enough budgetary flexibility to accommodate that through the years as it grew. But my question is to the university, how much, once that's, the state started collecting with the mechanisms that they have, what was the benefit, like percentage-wise or value-wise, when you all handed that over to them? Give me an idea of the rate of increase.
Yeah. So, for example, when we look at our portfolio of accounts where we have students or others who fail to pay a debt to the university, the accounts that we place with the Department of Revenue, we collect at about a 54% rate. Accounts that we place with third parties, so not with the state, we collect at about a 12% rate. So when you use that approximately $1 million number, as the senator pointed out, and that's a pretty round number that we've collected on an annual basis, we would expect to collect a little bit less than $225,000 instead of $1 million.
Let me interject. If the state gets 25%, what does the third party contract? What was it?
Most third parties also charge us about a 33%.
That's
rate.
what I thought.
Yeah. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very welcome. Other questions at this point in time on this topic?
One of the other things I'd like to point out is that one part that's also not reflected in this is the fact that we collect a lot. We get a significant response rate just upon notifying our debtors that they're going to be placed with the state. So not reflected in these numbers are the amount that we collect before it even goes to that stage. And then I think, what we've been working with the council, the CPE, is trying to find a way to accommodate some of the staffing challenges that were noted by the department. That pre-notification, the notification that a lien is being placed, and then just waiting for the lien to be collected, I think are some opportunities where we could work together with the department to find a solution that would be, help out. I certainly can appreciate as a CFO and as an operator, certainly can appreciate staffing challenges and the difficulty of retaining staff and finding staff. So, sometimes it maybe there's some opportunity between the notification and the placing of the lien and mitigating some of the active collections that causes the stress that was being noted by the department. That would still be a very successful collection and better than our private collections that would help out the universities and, again, mitigate the budget shortfalls that are being caused by this action.
Very good. And Mr. Calvert, Mr. Crawford, obviously you guys, complex issue, but if there are things that we can do on our front, statutorily or otherwise, to help get you guys back to where you were, because ultimately, yes, it's a budgetary item, but to me, it's a fairness item too, right? If you're going to show up at a university, you're going to expect a service, you're going to buy books, you're going to eat food, you're going to live in the dorms, you're going to demand tuition and professors and support staff, you should pay the bill for that, regardless of what that looks like, and it's only an issue of fundamental fairness. So, guys, thank you very much to you, Mr. Crawford. Commissioner, I think I see you over there behind the KET camera. We appreciate your time today. Very well. All right, anybody else have anything come before this committee today? All right, I'm missing one. Senator Givens.
Are you preparing to conclude the meeting, Mr. Chairman?
I am, sir.
Okay. Very briefly, I want to put an asterisk beside something I may ask us to look at in the future, if that's appropriate.
Please do, sir.
In our packet of information, there is a memorandum among the reports we received titled the Interim Appropriations Revisions for the Second Quarter of 2026. And buried in those numbers is sometimes even numbers here get so large they catch my attention, a $2,057,740,900 Medicaid benefit federal line item being reported as an interim appropriation revision. I've asked staff to look into that number because a number that large tends to make me wonder, are we seeing a quarterly reporting anomaly of some kind where something from the third quarter is slid back into the second, or vice versa? But I just simply want to alert the committee that I may have some questions next meeting.
Very well. So to our staff, if you would, please reach out to CHFS and have them look into why we did see that adjustment. That would be great. All right. Seeing no other business to come before the committee, the next meeting will be chaired by Co-Chair Petrie on November the 5th, 1 p.m. here, and we will stand adjourned.